بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته كلنتي وناكسن daawadayaasha qiimaha iyo qadarinta mudan lahow meel walba joogtaan waa mar kale iyo barnaamijkii codka jaaliyada Canada oo xiliyadan oo kale aad uga barateen inuu idinkaga yimaado stuudiyaha telefishinka qaranka Soomaaliya oo ku leeyahay magaalada Toronto ee dalka Canada waxaana barnaamijka halkan idinkaga soo gudbinaya anigoo ah Muxudiin Jaamac barnaamijkeena toddobaadkan waxa aynu ku soo qaadanaynaa kulan looga hadlayay waxqabadka iyo taariikhdii Allah u naxariistay Dr. Idil Maxamed Saalax Ladane ayaa lagu qabtay magaalada Ottawa ee caasimadda dalkan Canada. Dr. Idil Maxamed Saalax Ladane waxay aad ugu ololeyn jirtay xuquuqda haweenka Soomaaliyeed, dhiirigelinta sareynta sharciga iyo in gayiga Soomaaliyeed oo dhan laga hirgeliyo adeegyada aasaasiga ah ee bini'aadamku u baahan yahay sida waxbarashada, caafimaadka iyo nabadgelyada. الله أن حريستي دكتور إدل محمد صالح وحا أي كشقين جرتي وزارة الرماها ديبادة إدلك كندا قارهان واحدة هرمارينتا عالمية كلن كاسي أو لوغو مقعدري حسكا يا xasuusta دكتور إدل محمد صالح لداني أيا وحا كسو قيب قلي سراكيل كسعوتي وزارة الرماها ديبادة دلك كندا قارهان واحدة هرمارينتا عالمية مسؤولينتي صوماليات كسو قيب قلي كلن كاسي waxaa kamid ah danjiraha Soomaaliya u fadhiya dalka India Ebian Maxamed Saalax Ladane iyo danjirihii hore ee Soomaaliya u fadhiyay dalka Kenya mudane Maxamed Ali Americo hadaba daawadayaal barnaamijkaasi oo jaaliyada Soomaaliyeed ee ku dhaqan magaalada Ottawa iyo nawaaxigeedu ay ka soo qayb galeen ayaan waxaan idin soo gudbinaynaa barnaamijkaasi oo dhameystiran waxaana barnaamijka idin xiriirinaya Sharmaarka Xasan ee daawasho wacan
waxaan jeclaan lahayn in la xurmeeyo loona turo shicibka lana sareysiyo xaqa shakhsiga si loo xoojiyo nabadda iyo horumarka wadanka waxaan jeclaan lahayn in haweenka Soomaaliyeed sii wadaan wada tashigooda gudaha iyo dibadda iyagoo isku xiran iyo in wada jir loogu duceeyo wadanka iyo dalka oo dhan.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to first of all welcome you all for coming. We're all gathered here to remember a very special person that we lost and to celebrate her life. And you'll hear from a number of people today who had close working relationship with Dr. Idil. But before that, I want to also welcome you with the greetings of peace and the greetings of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So when I was asked to maybe host and MC this, I started reflecting on different things that you learn early on in life, and the few things learnings from my own family that come to mind is one particular hadith that was reported by Ibn Abbas. Do the 5 before the 5. So take advantage of your youth before you get old, health before sickness, free time before preoccupation, wealth before poverty, and life before death. And I think you would all agree today that Dr. Idil was one who really took this to heart and made sure that she practiced this in everything that she lived, and we can see from the legacy of what she's left for us. So without further ado, we have a number of people on the agenda today who are going to be talking to us about Dr. Idil's life. And people that have worked with her on many different occasions. I see family members gathered here. I see friends and many colleagues. Now I'd like to call up Mahmoud Hajiadan, a prominent community member here, who's been in the Ottawa community for many years, doing phenomenal work, and quickly read his bio to you. He's worked in the Somali community in Ottawa and was a great friend of Dr. Idil Salah. Their friendship dates back 20 years now. He's also the winner of numerous prestigious awards, including the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Award. So without further ado, Mahmoud Hajiadan, please come on up.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. صلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. I stand before you not because I'm known to be a public speaker, but I stand before you because I feel that I should be here and share some observations about what I know and how I feel about my colleague and dear friend. And without sanctifying anyone, I would like to read verses from the Quran, and I'll try to translate with the sole intention of asking Allah to make Dr. Saleh, Dr. Muhammad, one of those people who are mentioned in these verses. That's the intent of my reading in this reading these verses. So let me start by saying, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. Allah has mentioned in these verses some special people, very, very, very special people, and my tribute for Dr. Saleh is towards that end. Allah says, as for those who say, our Lord is Allah, then continue in the right way, the angels will descend upon them, saying, fear not, nor be grieved, and receive good news of the garden which were promised to you. We are guardians in this world's life and in the hereafter, and you shall have been there. You shall have therein what you have your souls desire, and you shall not therein ask for something that will grieve you or worry you. It's a provision from the forgiving and the merciful. And who speaks better than he who calls to Allah while he or she himself does good and says, I am surely of those who submit. So in essence, the message in these verses is that those who strive to do good, develop positive relationships with people during their lifetime, help those who are less fortunate, then the promise from Allah is that they will be entered into the Garden of Eden. And you will agree with me that Dr. Muhammad, one way or other, just touched each and every one of us. And that's what brought us all over here. And I hope that the lesson that we will take from here is one that I will conclude with a hadith from the Prophet. It's a tradition of Islamic, Islamic tradition, and it says, when the person passes away, everything that he or she did will stop, except three things. And they supplemented what my colleague and friend Sharmaka has stated. Those three things are, if you developed or created a charity that will benefit the least vulnerable in the future, that's one. The second one is, if you left behind a child that will supplicate on your behalf towards Allah. And the third one is, if you educate someone, and that someone will help others to get education. Those three things will continue. Everything else will stop. And I hope that Dr. Muhammad has been so successful in implementing those key activities, good deeds. And inshallah, we will all pray towards Allah to forgive her and admit her into the Garden of Eden, inshallah. With that, I conclude.
walaalayaal asalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaahi wabarakaatu aad iyo aad aan ugu faraxsannahay inaad nagala soo qayb gasheen walaashay xasuusta loo sameynayo halkan waxaa caawa fadhiya dad badan oo aad ula shaqaynaysay waxaa nala jooga wabaashay waxay ka shaqaynaysaa 28 sano Canada joogtay 18 sanana waxay ka shaqaynaysaa Canada waxay maxaan ku sheega ahayd senior citizen oo maxaan ku dhaw wasaaradda arrimaha dibadda midaas daraadeed baa keentay inay intaanoo shaqaalaheedii ay isu soo baxaan oo ay dhahaan annaga maadaama ay qof qaaliya nagu ahayd qof wax badan nala soo qabata ahayd qof maxaan ku dhahaa hawl badan ase Canada ahaan u soo qabatay ahayd inaan halmaano xasuusteedii ma rabno sidaas daraadeed baan annaguna ase community Soomaali ahaan iyaduna sidoo kale community Soomaalida wax badan u soo qabatay wax badanna la jeclayd in aan halmaano maaragtay dhimashadeedii inaan halmaano ma aha sidaas aanan caawa meesha isugu nimid sidaas aanan ku xusaynaa nolosheedii inaan ku xusno nolosheediina aanan saas aanan ku halmaamin annaga family ahaan sidaa garanaysaan waxaan ka soo jeeday Idil Ladane aabo waxaa SYL my sister I can say you that word she has a father of SYL means Somali Youth League that was the founders freedom fighter in Somalia so she came from that kind of family and that's where her roots was markay walaashay ka timid family SYL ah waxay ku soo kortay guri qarannimo looga koriyay guriga iyaga qaran buu ahaa wuxuu ahaa guri Soomaaliyeed aabahay nin walba oo SYL ah wuxuu noo ahaa adeer annagoo yar baan saa uga soo tagnay Soomaaliya waxbarashaan soo aadnay kadibna qacdi baa dhacday Soomaaliya sidaas daraadeed wali Soomaalinimadii iyo maxaan ku shaqaranimadii ku soo koriyay oo ku soo habay Idil Ladana kama ay dhamaan waxay ahayd curadii reerka waxay qaadatay roolkii annaga iyada raadkeedii baan ku daba joognaa aabahay wuxuu dhihi jiray maanday ratiga weyn ratiga yar saanqaadkiisu leeyahay saanqaadki marka waxay noqotay hormuud waxay reelada noo ahayd hormuud waxay noo ahayd walaal waxay noo ahayd gacal waa garan karnaa marka annaga ay nala dhalatay wanaageeda oo maanta intay soo jirto cimri la noolayn oo jaceelkeedana idinka oo ama sanad yaqaanay ama 10 sano yaqaanay ama 20 sano yaqaanay ama 15 sano yaqaanay say idin taabatay annaga marka maxaad dareemaysaan marka walaalayaal waxa weeye qof walba uu dhimanayaa maxaa adduunka uga tagtay waay maxaa sadaqaysata waay maxaad wanaajisay waay waxaa isugu nimid wanaageeda maanta alxamdulilah rabbil caalamiin Somali government umay shaqaynin Somali government lacag ma bay garaynin laakiin waxay samaysay 25 sano qadiyad Soomaaliyeed bay u taagneed way shaqaysanaysay government Canada u shaqaysanaysay meesha highest level of government ka shaqaysanaysay saasoo tahay ma dhihin okay I have enough my life naftayda aniga it's enough ma dhihin waxay u shaqaynaysay ummadda Soomaaliyeed intaas organization maxaan ku sheegaa bay fawziyo ka dhawaajisay bay wax ka aastay intaas oo movement ay wax ka qabatay intaas oo dhan waxa ahayd volunteer 2004 kii cartay tagtay 1 month si usoo volunteer in governmentiga Soomaaliya la dhiso lacagteeda ku bixisay tigidkeeda gashay timekeeda soo gelisay markaas ay dhaheen abayada ibn ambassador she was there with her markaas ay dhaheen maxaa rabtiin gabdhayo u timaadeen waxba u maan imaan bay dhaheen inaan Soomaaliya dawladda la leeyahay waa loo dhisayaa aqligeena iyo maskaxdeena iyo cilmigeena wixii aan ugu dari karno aan ugu darno baan u nimid oo hadda waxba nagama doonaysaan maya waxba idin kama doonayno wayna ka soo tageen waxaan ka wadnaa marka inaan qof walba Soomaaliya maxaad adiga Soomaali u qaban kartaa maxaa wadanka u qaban kartaa maxaad ku kordhin kartaa taas walaashay ilaahay ha u naxariisto janno firdaws Allah ka waraabiyo that was her dream habeen iyo maalin iyadoo sida ay u shaqeyso qof u shaqeeyo jirino marxaati caaw intaasoo colleagueskeeda ay joogaan oo marxaati nooga ahaayeen haddana habeenna kama ay seexanin waxa ila jeceshay Soomaaliya waxay la jeclayd nabad Soomaaliya waxay la jeclayd peace Soomaaliya waxay la jeclayd horumar Soomaaliya waxay la jeclayd maxaan ku sheegaa prosperity marka inaan halmaano ma aha legacygeeda anaga ka dambeeyna ilaaha intaan ka dambeynayno wixii aan tabarteena iyo taagteena waan samaynaynaa isku guri baan ku soo kornay waxay aaminsaneed waa la aaminsanahay waxay jecleed waa la jecelnahay and thank you very much for all of you. I'm sorry I speak Somali much greater than I can say and I love my sister. She named her daughter me, I'm Ayan, and her daughter is Ayan, and Kamal named his daughter for Ayan. So I have a new generation of my name. I love her so much, and thank you very much.
I think one of the key things to take away is, we lose people often, but, to keep them in our prayers and our thoughts. And I think, gathered here today, it's one thing that I urge everyone to continue to do. So I'll start off by sharing Dr. Idil's very impressive biography, and then we'll get on to a few other speakers. Idil Salah was a loving mother to her daughter Ayan and 3 nieces, Fozia, Mariam, and Aisha. She was a big sister to not only her 9 siblings, but so many of you who are here today. Idil's kind-hearted and tough-loving nature made her a caring friend, great mentor, ambitious activist, and most notably, an honest speaker. Truly the definition of no holds bar. And everyone here can attest to that. Idil Salah's love for her life with balance, her true motivation in life were reflective in both her professional and personal life. Idil joined CEDA in 2002, working for the Canadian Partnership Branch. She was a committed senior international development officer who managed programs and projects that focused on multi-sectors such as democratic governance and human rights, organizational capacity building, as well as institutional and community development through programs on economic growth, education, health, food security, including agriculture, peace building, and gender equity. In close relation to her professional career, a major part of Idil's time was devoted to the strengths of Somali unity and healing for over 20 years. To further this commitment, she dedicated a decade of research academically to understand and identify solutions for Somalia's dilemma. Both her master's and PhD were dedicated to this issue. Her most recent endeavor was Somalia diaspora voluntary voting in 2016. It focused on Somali diaspora living in a number of different countries around the world who would have a genuine interest in the future of Somalia. Participation in the upcoming election in 2016 would be an acknowledgement of the valuable contribution to the country. Diaspora will serve as catalyst factor that would even the playing field for all candidates regardless of their clan affiliation, economic power, and political party. Idil was also Somali Canadian women activists who strongly believed women are the backbone of peace and development and who worked relentlessly to foster the rights of Somali women in both Canada and in Somalia. As the co-founder of the Somali Women's Circle Network and a former president of SOM Canada Institute for Research and Development, Idil wrote extensively on Somali issues, especially on the role of Somali women in peace and development. Throughout the course of this memorial, we will talk about different aspects of this amazing woman's life, and more importantly, continuing her vision for our community. So now I'd like to call up one of Idil's colleagues, Frank Schneider. I'm pleased to welcome our second speaker now, Frank Schneider, to the stage. Frank worked with Idil as her supervisor with the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade for many years, and she considered him an invaluable colleague and a friend. So without further ado, Frank, come on up.
Thanks very much. I dare say I may not need to use this microphone. I'm much more used to talking with groups of farmers, so my voice carries very naturally. In fact, my wife often says to me, "Shh, you're not in the field now, I can hear you." I've had as indicated, first of all, I would like to thank the family, Idil's family, for inviting me and honoring me to say a few words on behalf of not only myself, but my colleagues both here in Ottawa, Gatineau, but also overseas. And some of our colleagues now are in Ethiopia, in Mozambique, and elsewhere in other parts of the developing world. As already mentioned, I had the good fortune of working with Idil in Partnership Branch for over 5 years. Her colleagues and I dare say the organizational partners who knew her more closely, will always cherish her welcoming disposition, a quiet yet assertive manner, goodwill, and a commitment to make this world a better place through increased social justice and opportunity, particularly for women and youth. In her quiet way, the flame of passion for those things that she believed in always burned brightly in her. One of those passions, obviously, as we've already indicated this morning, or this afternoon rather, has been this acquisition of knowledge through education, with no doubt considerable sacrifice on her part, carrying a full-time job, raising the girls, as I've come to know them, and having a full-time job, she was able to complete the requirements of a PhD degree. And this has been very motivational for me and for those of her colleagues who had the good fortune of working with her. This love of learning for the good of others was a driving force for Idil. It was obviously fulfillment of her own desire, but I always saw it in her that it was a learning for the good of others, always. And of course, that flame was always reflected in a smile, as we've seen in the pictures here today, that could bring sunshine to the most overcast of personal skies. While she no doubt had those down days we all experience in our daily lives, she always was quick to flash that smile that could inevitably make things better for others. But there was another side of Idil too, that many of us who didn't know her as well as some of you are coming to know, her commitment to family. But family, not in the family in a traditional sense, but the extended family. Her love of the family extended beyond her daughters, her sisters, her brothers, her mother, and her father, through to the Somali community in Canada, Somalis in Somalia who have undergone a lot of hardship, and even more broadly to the global family of sisters and brothers. In a world where understanding and goodness seemed to be in such short supply, Idil walked tall. She set a good example for all of us. She will be missed, but not forgotten. The memorial fund that is to be established in her name will ensure that the goodness that she represented lives on. She will live in those who benefit from the fund and through their contributions to our society, a society committed in global understanding, goodwill, social justice, and opportunity for all. I would like to ask, before I finish, I would like to ask maybe the sisters to come down and receive the small token of the appreciation of the small team that I lead, to receive a further memento to what you already have seen here today.
I would now like to call up Norman Cook. Norman was also a former boss of Dr. Idil's. He first hired Idil and Sita in 1998 as the international consultant and researcher. That was the start of her civil servant career with the Canadian government. She has always credited him for helping her start that career. Please join me in welcoming Norman Cook.
I too would like to thank Idil's family for giving me the honor to stand in front of you and speak of this remarkable woman. It wasn't 1998 when I first met Idil Sala. It was earlier than that. It was a couple of years before that. One of the things that we were doing at Sita at the time, perhaps a better time in the life of Sita, was we were able at that point to innovate. And in our innovation, we had created something called the Muslim-Christian Dialogue. And our objective was to bring together the world's largest Muslim NGOs with the world's largest Christian NGOs to find some ability to work together, to search for peace within the context of development, and to have those organizations working together was extremely important. Around that exercise that we did, this young woman kind of circulated. And I remember her speaking a few times in a very quiet tone, a tone that later I came to understand characterized how she approached communication. It didn't take long before she then came along and said to me over at Sita, "I would like to work for you." I said, "Oh, well, I'm qualified." And I said, "Well, you'll have to come and have an interview." And she showed up one day, but it wasn't for an interview, it was for her job. That was typically Idil. And she may as well have said to me, "Where am I going to sit?" And because she intended to work for me, and indeed she did. And in that process, we began to discover things about this remarkable woman. Some of the things that have been touched upon already. We discovered a woman of pride, a woman of a tremendous work ethic. And I hope that her young relatives who are about to begin their careers really understand how hard this woman worked. She would put in the long hours. She would understand exactly what the discussion was. It didn't take long before I said to her, because I knew she was interested in Somalia, that I would like you to go out to Somalia and I'd like you to take an NGO person with you to maybe determine what it is that we could possibly do in Somalia. And she did. She took Bernard Taylor of Partnership Africa Canada with her. And they did an evaluation of the ongoing work that we were doing in Somalia. But above all, she brought back a wonderful photograph, which I'm going to try and find and give to you, Ebian, of her sitting under a tree with a group of African women in this circle, this wonderful dialogue. And when she came back, I said to her, "How'd it go?" And she threw the photograph on my desk. She had conducted her dialogue. Idil had understood that the business that we were in was a bit different for the minorities who worked at Sita and for the people who came from developing countries. That somewhere it wasn't simply a case of a sense of charity, a sense of giving. We had our stuff on the line. She wanted to work with me and she wanted to work with Sita in order to rebuild the thing of which she was extremely proud, and that was her beleaguered Somalia. This was a Somali superstar. We're talking about a very great African woman here, and I think those of you from the Somali community who've raised her and worked with her know exactly how great this woman was. We also discovered that Idil Saleh cared more than about Somalia, that she also cared about the larger diaspora of Africans. Together, and some of those people are in this room and they've come distance to hear what I have to say about this. She was on the steering committee of the African-Canadian Dialogue, that exercise that brought so many of us together from so many places. A David Onyalo from Kenya, he's in the room. Sylvia Caicedo from Ecuador, she's in the room. Fatima Amin from South Africa, she's in the room. There are so many of us. Jocelyn Constant from Haiti. She was one of us. She was one of our sisters. This was a great Pan-African woman who loved not only her Somalia, but understood the necessity and the importance for all of us to work together. She was also a very determined woman. You know, I had never seen anyone put her back to the wheel quite like Idil Saleh. When she decided she was going to do something, she really did it. She didn't fool around. She was also a person who had one of those rare abilities. She had the ability to speak without speaking. She could look at you, she could shift her eyes, she could look at the floor, she could I had never seen anyone who was such a great nonverbal communicator in my life. Sometimes she would just look at me and I would just, oh boy, you know, let me not say what I'm thinking about saying, or, you know, maybe I'd better take this back into my office and come back again, you know, and approach it differently. Idil was like that. She was also a loyal friend. She was a very, very profoundly loyal friend. And when I look at people like Nailan, and I look at people like Tammy, and I look at people like Fatima Amin, these were very deep friends of hers, and she stayed with them the whole time. They were close. They were loving. This Idil Saleh was special. She was also a great Canadian, and that's worth stressing as well, that she had an ability to do something that many of us seek to do and need to do, because we have many identities. She was a Somali, she was a woman, she was a Pan-African, and she was a Canadian. And in the context of all of that, she was able to maintain her center, to maintain exactly her own identity. We always knew who Idil Saleh was. There was never a doubt about who she was, and there was never a doubt about what she intended to do. For those of us who really knew her, she intended to rebuild Somalia. She's going to do it, and furthermore, she's still going to do it, and she's going to do it through you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good afternoon. First of all, I just want to say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And I think I'm going to start that, request you that we pray for Dr. Idil in our community, in our religion. I would request Somalis if you can read 3 times the Surah Qul Wala, just for a few seconds. Allah unaxariisto walaasheen Idil oo naga tagtay waa meel loo socdo waay. When I heard about this event today, the memorial for our sister, I got a message from Ambassador Ebian. I was traveling, I was in Holland, Amsterdam, went there for a meeting with the Somali community, and I promised her that I will not miss, and I'll come here to pay my dues. As the speakers before me spoke, I think they summoned what and who Idil was. I met her, I think it was 2004, 2005. Actually, that's when I got to know her through Ebian, Ambassador Ebian, who me and Ebian used to work at the former Somali Prime Minister's office in Somalia, and apparently me and her, we were nominated to be ambassador at the same time in 2007. And I met Dr. Idil here in Ottawa and also in Kenya many times, and we communicated throughout, through emails and telephone. And as it was said before, she was really, I don't know what to say, a good person, a person who really loved Somali. She always talked about reconciliation. She talked about dialogue. She always talked about wanted Somalia to have peace and stability. And as the previous speaker said, what she spoke always was love and peace. And she always tried and did really to bring people together and supported the Somalis in the diaspora, also in Somalia, the IDPs, the refugees. I used to be the Somali ambassador to Kenya. And always she used to call me and really send support to the refugees. And I appreciate that. Also, something that was mentioned earlier about, she wrote, I think, a letter, something about that Somalis in the diaspora should be able to vote in next elections. I want to promise here now that I will push that. What she wrote down, that inshallah ta'ala, whenever we have next time elections, that the Somalis in the diaspora, which I'm part of it also, that should be able to vote and be part in decision making in Somalia. I don't want to say more. Let's keep her in our prayers, inshallah. Thank you.
I'd like to call up Fawzia Abdelkader, who many of you know and is a dear friend of Dr. Idil Salah. Fawzia Abdelkader was a longtime friend and a confidant of Dr. Idil. They worked together through many NGOs and organizations, and one which was the Somali Gender Equity Movement. Fawzia and Idil have been neighbors for over 10 years and friends for over 25 years. Fawzia Abdelkader, who is also a dear mentor of mine, so welcome. Please join me in welcoming her.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let's take a moment and read Qul Huwallah for Sister Idil. As sayings go, we as Muslims believe that when 100 people of good heart read the blessings for you, then you are received in the doors of heaven, which is why I started it that way. It is still sinking in that we're not going to see Idil. And I'll try my best to keep it together. I met Idil when I came to Ottawa in 1990. And we have become friends, and we have been friends since. I was asked to speak on one of the latest initiatives and organizations that Idil co-founded with us, the Somali Gender Equity Movement. We have done so many NGOs. We wanted to do a movement, and she was going to be one of the leaders of that movement. And hopefully, that movement will make a change. But I also would like to acknowledge the fact that as an almost sister and a neighbor and a colleague, I am wearing multiple hats. So SGM is one of them. So is the National Council of Somali Unity, which was founded here in Ottawa by a whole group of men, and myself, and Idil was an honorary member of their group. We have not initiated any dialogue or a community event without having her as one of the speakers. She was a prominent connection to that group. I met Idil when she was a very active leader in the Somali University Students Association. I can see Kamal here, and I'm glad to hear Jami's letter earlier. And it was one of those functions that I met Idil and saw how amazing she was throughout the years. And I can see and picture the Somali National Week that they used to host in the early 90s. I also am wearing a hat as not only a neighbor, but as a fellow civil servant with the federal government, so those multiple hats. I'm glad Norman said earlier that Idil was a loyal friend. Idil was loyal to everybody she knew in every facet that she met that person in and what she was helping them with. So it was through that loyalty that we might not be together every day, but no matter how many weeks or months or days we haven't seen each other, even though we literally live on the same street, it would have been when we see each other that we haven't missed a beat, and we would talk about what happened and what we need to do next and who needs to be informed and how to organize and how to mobilize resources towards women's issues, towards our beloved Somalia. And we had many a conversation where we're sitting in the winter in Ottawa, and I'm like, well, we are here and we're not there. Maybe we should start changing our focus and look at here. And she's like, no, we're here, we're doing it, but we need to stay connected and we need to talk about the women back home, and we need to, so I'm glad that that will continue through whatever form of foundation we create. Women's education and women's empowerment would be a key aspect of what we're going to do and continuing to do. And particularly for the young generation, the baton is over to you to continue that legacy. Because gender equity is humanity, and it's humans being equal. She was devoted to justice and human rights, and it was really easy to sit for hours and talk to Idil about justice, no matter where, whether it was about working here on community issues, on our work files, on talking about just parenting in the context of the diaspora, and trying to bridge two cultures and bridge that reality of having both cultures and raising girls and boys who are more Canadian than Somalis, but trying to sort of remind them that they are also Somalis. It was profound how proud she was about her Somaliness, and it was deep how proud she was about being a woman. So it's a privilege, and I want to say thank you to Ayan, Fauzia, Mariam, Aisha, and all the sisters and Ambassador Eglin for including me in this event today and giving me these few minutes to say. I have a lot to say, but I don't want to make everybody cry. I know I'm going to miss Idil for a long time. And hopefully through you we'll be able to do something together, because as we have seen, life is very fragile and it can end abruptly. So no more postponing and procrastinating. We will try and do what we can, but we are hoping also that there has been enough of a role model in Idil's actions for you, the young generation. My namesake, Fauzia, and I'm looking at Ayan and the boys, that it is not just about earning a paycheck. There is more to life if we take the legacy of Idil, that you can do more than earn a living, that you can touch and have an impact as many people as you can, virtually and face to face. And I just want to reflect on the latest the Somali Gender Equity Movement, which we have had a launch in June. And one of the many trips, we have taken many trips together to conferences. I remember 2007 going to Ohio together. I remember going to many Somali Studies Congress with Idil. That we were together in June, and we were in Minnesota, and we were debating how this movement is going to be sustained and how to mobilize resources and focus and center social justice and gender justice in the minds of, and as I said, it was going to be bigger, and it will be bigger than an NGO. It was going to be a social movement, and thanks to Idil, we have had 2 days of literally sitting and doing the strategic planning. And so she was one of the founders. There were 11 of us. And that memory will stay with me for a long time, in addition to all the other memories I have of my beloved sister Idil. May she rest in peace.
Thank you, Nimra. The next person I'd like to call up is Ladane, another family member. So please come on up and join me in welcoming Ladane.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Waxaan ku hadlayaa Soomaali. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Waxgaradka haweenka culimada dhalinyarada iyo saxaafadda waxaan ku salaamahay salaanta islaamka. Assalaamu calaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakaatuh. مرة بيننا نربس عن نقطة إن شاء الله في words أيام أرندونا وحام هذله الله يسوكاي كأني وحام هذله الله يسوكاي كأني إن أنا أدعينه ولا شيء دكتور سعيد اللادني أو أهيد قف هوية friend هوية أود أهيد أنت تشعل هرم أو أنت تشعل sorry أنت تشعل horumarinta dhaqanka luqadda iyo afka Soomaaliga inta jecel luqadda afka Soomaaliga nabadda iyo cadaaladana aad u jecel in ka qayb qaataan qof kastoo halkan joogan xushmad ayuu u hayaa idil sida laga wada dhawaajiyay gaar ahaan anigu haddaan nahay walaasheed laba wax kaliya ayaan rabaa inaan ka iraado idil waxay ahayd si gooni ah qof walba oo walaal la ah idil si gooni ayay u tixgelin jirtay jacayl gooni ah ayay u qabtay oo qofka kale uu isleeyahay ama xiblaayay ka jeceshahay laakiin jacaylkeedu wuxuu ahaa Soomaali Maxamed oo dhan ayay saameysay idil si gooni ah oo unique ah ayay lahayd example hospitaalka markii ay ku jirtay idil waxay iga codsatay barnaamijkan hadda ay sameysay ma sha Allah Somali diaspora vote bay tiri deeqo maxaa kugu dhacay hawshaas ma aadan qabanin oo kale saan ku yiri many pages baa lagu soo daray maba eeginba I was in it 3 months ago laakiin maadaama aan arkay boqolaal page mar walba lagu soo daro maba fiirin ilaahay amarkiis waan ka xumaaday waxaan ku yiri idil leeyahay saas bay dhacday let me bal hadda aan hawsha aan meesha aan ka bilaabo overnight baan la seexanay hospitaalka waxay gutay admin ka noqo ma rabin marka inaan dareemo in dhimashadeeda ama nolosheeda dhamaanayso oo kale waxaan ku yiri no I won't be the admin laakiin public maadaama aan ahay waxaan ku darahay qof walba more than 100 people ayaan ku aad garay habeenkaas oo aan tusay page-ki waxa kale aan ku xasuustaa idil waxa weeye hal safar oo aan isla galnay oo walaalkay arooskiisa Saciid Ladane in August last year somehow marka hadda soo socday baan igu soo dhacday saaka marka soo baxay travelkii lacag yar oo change ah oo Canadian money $200 Canadian money baan wati Mareykan wala galaya you need US money my cousin baa soo soconay Yusuf Abdirashid Yusuf markaas si kaftan wuxuu yiri maxaa ku soo tala gashay intaan ku yiri coffee-ga change-ga lacagti ma isticmaal karo markaas idil uu sheegay markaan baxayay bay tiri time ma haysa wax ku bedelatide here the $100. Honestly God, from last year ma eegin wax intaan isticmaalay iyo intii I put it here with my passport and I don't even know. This is 50, 70, 80, and I don't even know the changing. This is the Idil's money from last year, 2014 in August, my brother's wedding. Saakum bay ugu soo dhacday runtii because passportkan u baahnaa and I look at it and I'm like wow. Spiritual. Subhanallah. Marka waxaan ku soo gabagabeynayaa walaalayaal qof walba jacaylka uu qabo Idil Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jannada Allah ka waraabiyo inaan sii gudbino waxa ay jecleedna inaan wada qabanno haddii Ilaahay yiraahdo sida page-ka sadde abaya ay samaysay Somali Diaspora Vote ay aad u jecleed in macnaha ay meel walba la gaarsiiyo. So far 3 parts of qaybta Toronto, US and London groups baan hadda already ka shaqeynaya arrintan ayaa jirta. Dadka soo mahadiyay ama ducada soo hibeeyay hadda aan ku daro talada oo raba inay ka qayb qaataan jooga qaybna ay joogaan London waxaa ka mid ah Abshir Jaamac Qayladaan group Rest and Peace buu yiri Idil Ladane Zakariya Maxamed xamar ka soo hadlay same thing Abubakar Cawaale xamar jooga same thing Abdullahi Xildhibaan Cabdicaziis Xildhibaan oo jecla inuu online ku soo hadlo but network is not working from London Rest and Peace reer Toronto sidoo kale ma soo wada qaadi karo community-ga qof kasta duca gooni ayuu u soo diray Ilaahay subhanahu wa ta'ala inuu jannada ka waraabiyo Ilaahay subhanahu wa ta'ala wixii ay bilowday in aan sii wadno oo ay noqoto legacy kaga tagto qof walba in qaybtiisa uu ka qayb qaato Ilaahay subhanahu wa ta'ala waxaan u rajaynaynaa aabaheen iyo iyadaba jannadii ummad inaan isku wada kulanno dhammaantayo ay noo noqoto xasuus aan lama ilaawaan ah. Assalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaahi wabarakaatu.
Assalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaahi wabarakaatu. Waa salaamantiin dhammaantiin. Runtii speech yar baa ii qornaa laakiin markay hadleen Fawziyo iyo Ayaan iyo sawirada meesha ku dhagan marka aragnay kulligeen I'm sure in emotional wada noqonay. Maxaa yeelay walaal fiican magaaladan uu ahaa xabag af Soomaaliga xabagta waa sida glue isku haya dad aad u fara badan oo haddii ayna idil ahaan lahayn laga yaabo dariiqa markay marayaan inaan isa salaam ay isku haysay aqalkoodu wuxuu ahaa aqal hub community-ga oo ah isugu yimaadaan meeshaas daangada iyo mataqaana timirta iyo qaxwaha lagu wada cabo every summer picnic lagu samaysto oo la isugu yimaado xaafadooda sidii ayaan ka sheekeynaysay aqalkooda backyard-ka looga hadlo issues-ka community-ga Soomaalida halkan iyo Soomaaliya ku haysta waxaan ku faraxsanahay inaan Soomaalida waxay tiraahdaa mahmaha baa jirta Soomaaliga la yiraahdo qofka ma taqaana haddii qofku yiraahdo waxaa jirta mahmaha Soomaalida qofka jid ma la martay jadiid ma la cuntay wax noocaas oo ah qofka marka la safartid hawl la gashid qofka quality-giisa dadnimadiisa markaas ogaanaysa anigu nasiib waxaan u yeeshay inaan la safro oo la safro Africa laba goor mar aan Kigali tagnay conference Somali Diaspora Conference aan tagnay soo aragnay genocide-ka halkaas ka dhacay iyo waxyaabaha Soomaalida ka faa'iideysan karto iyo sidii reconciliation loo sameyn lahaa oo dalka Soomaalidu ay nabad u noqon lahaa stability u heli lahaa iyo opportunity kale oo la safray Africa Soomaaliya on kaga qayb galnay conference na la kugu yeeray anagoo group ilaa 50 qof ah oo ka soo jeedna regionkaas Africa Soomaaliya qaybteeda bari gobolada North Eastern oo iminka Puntland loogu yeero waxaan nasiib u helay inaan la kulmo aabaheed marka taasaan rabaa marka inaan highlight gareeyo Ladane xaaji Ladane wuxuu ahaa dadkii SYL ama gobonimada Soomaaliya markii loo dagaalamay dhabarta u ahaa wuxuu ahaa ninkii markii Soomaalidu United Nations-ka Cabdullaahi-Ciise loo soo dirayay inuu present gareeyo case-ka Soomaalida iyo sidii uu diyaar ugu tahay inay xornimo noqoto ninkii loo diray gobolada Soomaalida oo barigaas oo aad dareemi kartaan gaari jirin waxba jirin yani communication-ka iminka jira uu jirin inuu soo ururiyo lacagtii oo New York ku aadi lahaa Cabdullaahi-Ciise Ladane Saalax deer ayuu ahaa wuxuu nooga sheekeynayay markaan la kulanay boosaaso kula kulanay idil iyo ebyan iyo deeqo iyo ayaan iyo aabahood isaga oo SYL u dirsatay inuu tago gobolada bariga oo yani recruitment kusoo sameeyo dad xisbiga taageera in telegram soo dhacay telegramkaas oo ka yimid xamar telegramkaas wuxuu sheegayaa yani isaga marka loo yeeray wuxuu yiri qandalaan joogay boosaasa la igu yeeray si aan yani u akhriyo fariintaasna ula share gareeyo populationka Soomaalida ku nool bariga Soomaaliya telegramkii markaan imid akhriyay waxa ku qoran buu yiri 6 qof oo Soomaaliyeed oo ugu horeysay oo scholarship hela waxa kamid ahaa safiirka hadda Soomaalida u fadhiya New York cilmi baa kamid ahaa dadka bariga helay 6 qof oo Soomaalida scholarship waxbarasho dibadda hela iyagoo dalku xor ahayn waxa laga hadlayaa 1950 something baa laga hadlayaa wuxuu yiri meel baan soo istaagay magaalada dhexdeedii dadkii magaalada dhan baa isugu yeernay waxaan u sheegnay in 6 qof oo Soomaaliyeed naloo qaadi doono wax noo soo baran doonaan ee dalka yani xornimada qaadashadiisa iyo maamulkiisa ay qayb ka noqon doonaan marka legacy noocaas ay idil ma aha idil kaliya ay ka soo jeedaa waa wax jiinka yani familigeeda iyo aabaheed xornimo u dirirkii uu soo sameeyay ayaa keenaya wadanimada idil ay sameynaysay in yaroo marka iska English dadka kale audience-ga aan doonay inaan la share gareeyo experience-gii walaashay idil ayaan doonayaa Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh like many of us by the way public speaker me kuma fiicni lakin I'll try like many of us here today I got to know Dr. Idil through her role in our community many years ago. She was very instrumental in establishing many initiatives and organizations such as Kamal mentioned, SUSA, Somali University Student Association, Somali National Week. She was the co-founder of the first Somali youth organization in Canada. She was the co-founder of first Somali Canadian advocacy organization, Somcan Institute for Research and Development. She was the co-founder of Somali Women's Circle, and she was a board member of Canadian Friends for Somalia. Her work was not confined to one organization, one specific organization, region, or country. Beside her work in Canada, Dr. Idil was very involved in many political, socio-economical, humanitarian, and development causes and projects in Somalia. Rick Warren once said, "In all other travels, I have never seen a country's population more determined to forgive and to build to build and succeed than in Rwanda." In January 2015, Dr. Idil and I, and many others, including Mahmoud Hassan, who is here also, had the opportunity to travel to Kigali, Rwanda, to attend a Somali diaspora conference. While we were there, we had the opportunity to visit a number of historical places, including Rwanda Genocide Memorial. Our eyes filled with tears as we sat in silence in a room at the Rwanda Genocide Memorial in Kigali. All around us were pictures of people who were killed, by the way, including many children, killed in 1991 genocide in Rwanda. We also visited $1 village established by Rwandese diaspora community to look after the orphans of the genocide. What we saw left everyone speechless. How could something like this have happened in this beautiful and peaceful country, Rwanda? What made it even worse, it wasn't just the soldiers or fanatics doing the killings. It was ordinary people like you and like me, neighbors killing neighbors. Through the new contact that she has established in that particular conference, Dr. Idil has co-founded Somali Gender Equity Movement, like Fauzia, who's also here, to bring about positive societal change through advocacy for human rights in general and women's rights in particularly in every aspect of social and political life in Somalia. In 2008, Dr. Idil and I, among a group of 50 diaspora leaders, were invited to attend a conference in Puntland. The aim of the conference was to bring all stakeholders, including government officials, civil society, traditional elders, business groups, and diaspora leaders, to discuss peace, security, governance, and development issues in that particular region. Unfortunately, the president of that region at the time has canceled our conference due to political reasons. Dr. Idil and I and many diaspora delegations, including the current president of Puntland, Dr. Abdiweli Ali, co-founded Puntland Diaspora Forum, PDF. I'm the current chair of that organization, and Dr. Idil was my vice chair. The aim of the organization is to harness Puntland diaspora resources, promote and advance democracy and good governance, promote knowledge transfer and information sharing among Puntlanders in the diaspora and the public and private in Puntland, and strengthen collectiveness and influence. Dr. Idil was a great sister, a friend, and colleague, and I know I speak for all her colleagues when I say how very much we will miss her. I'm glad to have this opportunity to share just a few of my memories of Dr. Idil with you. One of the best things about having Dr. Idil as a friend and colleague was that she was always prepared to give you a hand, something I have been grateful for myself on numerous occasions. I know I was not alone in that. Just having Dr. Idil around made you feel better whenever the challenge, and we all got to know her quick smile and ever-ready words of encouragement. Legacy is a very overused word these days. It seems that everyone and everything has to have one. But with Dr. Idil, it's true. She has left behind a very real legacy, which will affect the way we do things at many organizations that she was involved for a very long time to come. On a personal level, though, every one of us who knew Dr. Idil and worked alongside with her on a personal level, every one of us who knew Dr. Idil and worked along her, whether things were going well or badly, will remember her with great affection. When all is said and done, however much you like your work, it is the people of you meet in it that really matters, and the colleagues like Dr. Idil are something very special. You don't come across many of them, and when you do, they will leave a lasting impression. Dr. Idil, we are really going to miss you. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I never thought I would lose words. Usually I'm one of those people who talk too much. First of all, before I forget, on behalf of the organization that Idil was co-founded, Somali Women's Circle Network, we are very deeply saddened for the loss of our co-founder, Dr. Idil Ladane-Xus. We have lost a true champion, a leader, a mentor. Idil's passion and drive will forever remain in Somali Women's Circle. No words can really express our sadness. Also, in our gratitude to have the opportunity to work with Dr. Idil. To give you an example, I remember 10 days, the weekend prior to the weekend she died. We were sitting in her living room having a meeting as she walked around with her oxygen mask. And then I said, Idil, maybe we shouldn't be having this meeting. You're not feeling well. And she said, no, business as usual. And we ended up planning 4 hours of what direction she wants the circle to head, and what activities, the next activity, what she wants us to do. We will forever honor Idil's memories. There were many challenges, of course, in any relationship, but it was a bittersweet always. One of the 3 lessons that I wanted to share with you that I reflect when I think about Idil is believe in yourself. And I think a lot of people echoed on that. It was just one night that we're sitting, back in the day, when we co-founded the organization of Somali Women's Circle Network, some of the men in Ottawa had I think some sort of a joke. They used to call us the Three Musketeers. That mean Idil and Farhia and myself. And then later on it changed to Araweloyinki. So you learn a lot of lessons when you're working leaders like Dr. Idil Ladane-Xus. We envision an organization where everybody is welcome. And actually she said, let's not call it an organization. It has to be a circle and it has to be a network. So it's where everybody comes, brings their talent, regardless of their gender, regardless of their religion. Before I share with you the 3 lessons that I carry on with me when I remember Idil, our circle, having the ambition to bring all Somali women together in one umbrella, we're divided in tribal, we're divided in those who are truly Canadians, those who are truly Somalians, and those are in the middle, mix of both. And we also have those who are religious and those who are not religious. So knowing Idil, she was always outspoken on the topics, and especially religious topics. And sometimes we'll get in trouble. But that's what the beauty was. She wasn't afraid to bring the conversation to the table. The 3 lessons I learned: believing in yourself. I thought the circle was something that's not going to be possible, but we seen it, we lived it, and enhanced our lives and lives of everybody else that we shared. The second thing was the power of communication. No topic is too hard. You can really tackle every topic. Whether it's gender, whether it's politics, whether it's men's only topic, bring it to the table, talk about it. What's so hard about religion? What's so hard about politics? What's so hard about gender? Let's talk about it. There must be a solution. So that's something that I will carry on with me always, to have that open communication. Don't be afraid to have an open communication. The next thing was doing the impossible. She took me to Oprah Winfrey show. I never thought I would be doing that. And we have to sit in the front row. You know how hard that is? The whole time I was pinching myself, telling Fozia, is this for real? But that was something impossible for me to think about. But Idil is like, why not? Really? Idil, as my friend, as the aunt of my son, it was really hard following the cast when she was going to the burial land. I was one of the people that, it just kind of shook me. As a person who is, close to, I'm not religious, but tries to be religious, it hit me that I couldn't sleep the nights after. Then one thing that helped me, and I hope it helps you all, is that I did had 5 things. I was almost a miraculous. For the days that she got sick, she had an opportunity to do all close ties and do her will, and dardaarankeedii dadkii u dhawaa. She had time to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and her prayer, and you'd come in reading her Quran or listening on the phone, and she had time to do tasbih. Even at one point she told me, do you know there's something you can put in your thumb and you could just say subhanallah, subhanallah? I was like, yeah, I'm like, no. I only know the tasbih part. I didn't know there's such a technology that you can do your prayers just pressing the button. You're very advanced. She's like, yeah, somebody got me from Mecca now. So for her to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeing that in the first last days, for her to really have that, ask forgiveness, and also for her to forgive us and to think about the will and what she's leaving behind. She had that reflection. It was really amazing to see that. She also had her mom beside her, who in my religious and in the Somali culture, we believe the key to paradise is on the hands of your mom. So having her mom right there making dua, it's like granted for you. You have the key to paradise. You made your mama happy. So then I realized after my sadness of after she died, I have nothing to be sad about. I wish if we are as lucky as she is, having this closure and having this peace that she died. May Allah bless Dr. Idil, enlighten her grave, and grant her in paradise. Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'd like to say welcome and thank you for everybody for coming. My name is Fozia. I was Haber Idil's niece. When I say Haber in English, it's aunt or auntie. So my entire life it's always been Javier, Javier, Javier. So it's either Javier or Habo for short, so it'll be through my speech, but that means aunt in English. So, and this is Ayan.
Hi everyone, my name is Ayan Musa, and I was the daughter of Idil ibn Asala.
We wanted to thank you all for coming again. We heard many of the speeches today and we're absolutely heartwarmed. They were all so heartwarming. We're here today to speak to you about the part of her that we knew as our mom, and share some personal anecdotes with you all.
Okay, to start off, my mom was an amazing woman. The type that went through all types of hardships and always came out the other end smiling, no matter what. She was very kind and would always extend a loving hand and would impart words of wisdom to anyone that would take it. She was very selfless and throughout the illness would never show emotions on behalf of herself. She would only be sad when she saw the toll it was taking on us. That's the type of person my mom was. My mom was a very balanced soul. She knew the world for what it was. She was spiritual in that she held sand and gold as the same, for she understood that it came from one. The one thing she always stressed to us in life was balance. The balance of family, religion, spirit, education, and career.
She was always so adamant about being at peace with our God, our surroundings, and life overall. She encouraged us day to day out to be our authentic selves regardless of what society told us to do or believe. As I'm sure many of you know, raising a teenager isn't easy, let alone raising four simultaneously. However, Haber Idil was somehow always one step ahead of us, no matter how much we'd like to admit it. Teenagers always think that they're a little more clever than their parents and are always trying to get around their parents finding out things. The four of us were no exception to that. For instance, in our household, wearing makeup wasn't allowed. Haber Idil was so against wearing makeup because she believed it covered up who we really were inside. She saw it as a pointless and materialistic flaw of society that we lived in. However, with us being teenagers, we obviously made us want to do it more, basically. As we grew older, we became more inclined to wearing makeup, and there we thought we could hide it pretty well from her. I remember coming home from school wearing eyeliner and making sure I would stand a few feet away from her, just enough so that she wouldn't notice. I thought I outsmarted her at the time. And again, she wouldn't say anything, so I naturally just assumed that I succeeded in my cover-up, just as a clever teenager would. However, I only later realized that Haber Idil called my mom Evian multiple times, laughing so hard about this. She would tell her sister, they think I can't see them. They think I don't notice. Just because I wear glasses, they think that they can stand a few feet away from me and I wouldn't notice. Haber Idil always had a way of knowing exactly what was going on with me. Never had to say a word. It was a sixth sense in a way.
If my mom ever stressed anything to me in life, it was the importance of getting an education. This stemmed from my grandfather, Ladane-Xus, who empowered his children to get an education in Somalia in a time where that wasn't necessarily the norm for women. My mom was a person that truly loved learning. Reading and writing were her passions, and even after she finished her PhD, she never stopped acquiring more knowledge. She always pressed me to do well in school and fully delve into the subject that I'm learning, rather than mindlessly memorizing things the way I usually do. I'm currently in my third year studying international development and globalization at the University of Ottawa, and I would say this is mostly due to her. It is a field whose love I've inherited from my family. I've seen as a child my family working in that very realm to make lasting changes in the world around me. It's inspired me to do the same and to try and live up to my mom's legacy. My mom was an amazing activist for political change in Somalia and a great asset to CETA. My aunt/second mom, Ambassador Ladane-Xus, sitting over here, also inspires me to reach for the best in my field and to spend my life helping the people of my country. With these two amazing women as my role models in life, I do believe I can achieve the best and make a positive change in the world. At the time when my mom was sick, I remember telling her that I was going to take some time off of school in order to spend time with her. At this point, she didn't have very much breath left, but she managed to get out the phrase, "Don't you dare." And that was the end of the discussion. The whole time she was sick, she never complained, and she was so adamant on making sure the situation didn't affect my future endeavors. Honestly, I've never seen anyone be so strong through such a painful illness. Up until the end of her life, she smiled, laughed, and loved us as if everything was completely normal. She stressed that if anything were to happen to her, that we should all carry on in life with business as usual, as my Heavenly Name said earlier, to honor her by honoring ourselves. My mom was the strongest and smartest woman I've ever known, and because of her immense strength, a quality through her I embodied through this situation.
Idil was a natural activist for feminine rights and justice. Through her life, she would extensively research and publish on topics of gender equity, feminism, and good governance, just to name a few. She was always out helping other women connect and stand together so that our voices could be heard. She knew what our community needed, and after bringing her ideas to her friend, Naima, who spoke earlier, her friend Farhia, who's also here, and my mom, Ebian, they formed the Somali Women's Circle, as Heber Naima had mentioned earlier. The network stands for the empowerment of Somali women's roles in society in order to end the suffering of the Somali people, especially women. She used to say, "Enough is enough." I'm honored to have been a board member with her through the years. From watching her fight so hard for women like us in this room and for women back home, over time she instilled in me that we are all powerful. With our voices and our minds, we can establish anything and everything. No goal was too big or too small in her eyes. After completing the highest level of education, her PhD in political science, she set her goals on the toughest and most prestigious job within the Somali government, the 2016 presidency. Although she wasn't able to complete her last ambitious goal, we all know that she would have done an amazing job and brought back the Somalia she once knew and loved.
As you all probably know, my mom, she loved nature. Sorry. Is that not working? No. Okay, back to this mic. As you all probably know, my mom loved nature. And when I say love, I don't mean it lightly. I mean, she was the tree hugger of the family. As in, we had to hide our deodorant up until we were in high school because of the unnatural chemical content. In the way that people spend efforts beautifying their dining rooms, my mom would put that effort into the backyard. At every opportunity, she would be in the sun planting in the backyard. Usually she would have breakfast with her morning coffee outside and was beautifully at peace. Her zest for life was so admirable. She woke up before the sun every day just to watch it rise, while preparing for her day. On the weekends, my mom would barge into my room, opening every window to let in sun, often against my will, but wonderfully. I remember ever since we were kids, she would excitedly bring home the most exotic fruits and vegetables, just for fun to try out, and it would bring her and us so much joy. Some people require a lot to be happy, but for my mom, it was the simple things. The earth and the sun brought her much satisfaction. I bring up this trait today because on November 9th, the day after her passing, we gathered to bury her. The weather was scheduled to be cloudy with hard showers, and I remember that was really like a sad moment for all of us. But a miracle happened. On the morning of her burial, the sun shone brighter than I've ever seen it, and there wasn't a single cloud in the sky. The sun shone over her grave and warmed us all in comfort. The sun had said its farewell to its breakfast companion. Inshallah, may Allah have mercy on her as she showed mercy and grant her the highest level of Jannah.
So a few weeks ago, there was one night in the hospital where Haber and I had the final realization that the disease was too progressive to treat. So that night, she showed me that even though the odds are against her, excuse me. Yes, I got it, yeah. So, that night that she showed me that even though the odds were against her, she was strong and she wasn't going to give up. And yet she was still content. I told Heber that, I'm sorry for what she had to go through, and I wish I could have done something to help her, but this took, it didn't take much time between the time she was diagnosed and the time that she passed. But I will tell you one thing that she told me that brought me peace as it did for her. The day she was put in the hospital, she actually had another gentleman admitted with her at the same exact time. And procedures when you're there that they ask you who's gonna pick you up when you're discharged from the hospital. And the gentleman next to her, in the bed next to her, it said, I don't have anyone to pick me up. I'm taking OC Transpo after I'm discharged. And from there, she actually started to cry on his behalf. And she told me this after I'd come up because she had taken the paramedics. The paramedics had taken her, and I had met up with her after when we got there. And, she said to me, we shouldn't be sad. We shouldn't be sad. And, I've lived an amazing life. And honest to God, I can die happy because I had all of you guys. Her sisters, her mom, her brothers, her daughters, her nieces, her nephews, everybody was with her. And I'm very happy that at least we were all together at that moment in time for her. And she was very responsive up until the end. So she saw as many of you that were able to come, and she was very happy by that. So so she said to me that she's happy, and that's why we should all be happy for her that, she was content, and we move on and use her name and her legacy for the greater good of the Somali people and her community and the Canadian people of Ottawa and the rest. And so one last thing is, I told her that because of her, we are who we are, and I thanked her for that. And she said to me, don't thank me. We're family, and we're a team. And we should be very proud of ourselves. I hope to one day be outspoken, opinionated, and kind-hearted as her, because even if I was half the person she was, I promise I'd be good.
The last thing that I'd like to touch on is the fact that even though I lost my mother early, I consider myself blessed. I have a loving and large family who I know will support and love me for the rest of my life, inshallah. First of all, I have my dad, who's here today, who's been there my whole life, taking care of me, always being there for me. I have my cousins who are like sisters to me, Fozia, Marian, and Aisha. They're the rocks in my life, and I know we'll always be there for each other through thick and thin. We're a team, as my mom once said. My aunt Ebian, who was also a mother to me, always treated me as one of her own, as my mom did for her 3 girls. Over the years, we've become a blended family, and I feel so lucky to have these people in my life. The rest of the Ladane family and all my cousins from that side as well are as close as ever, and that is a blessing in itself. In a time like this, it is important to focus on the good that we do have. Finally, I'd like to say, Mom, if you were here right now, I'd tell you that I'm so grateful for the way you raised me and the lessons that you've taught me over the past 20 years. I promise to work as hard as I can to be as strong as you and to continue on in the manner you'd want me to. You prepared me well. I would like to conclude and say that though my mother passed away early, her legacy will live on through me and through all of us and through everyone she's affected in her life. And we love you.
baaq gaar ahoon u dirayno dhammaan ummadda Soomaaliyeed in la furo wada hadal iyo wada heshiis dhab ah maadaama hadda dawlad joogto ah ay wadankii ka dhalatay waxaan jeclaan lahayn inuu hadal dhex maro odayaasha iyo haweenka Soomaaliyeed waa markii aan dialogue bilaabi lahayn weeyaan waxaan jeclaan lahayn in la xurmeeyo loona turo shicibka lana sarreysiyo xaqa shakhsiga si loo xoojiyo nabadda iyo horumarka wadanka waxaan jeclaan lahayn in haweenka Soomaaliyeed sii wadaan wada tashigooda gudaha iyo dibadda iyagoo isku xiran iyo in wada jir loogu duceeyo wadanka iyo dalka oo dhan waxaan kaliya oo ku dari lahaa maadaama shirkan gabdhaha ay bilowdeen sanad ka hor waxa weeye waxaan sameynay wacyigelin waxaan tagnay Toronto waxaan halkan 2 jeer baan isugu imaanay Toronto 2 jeer baan isugu tagnay gabdhan naga tirsan ilaa Talyaaniga Ingiriiska dhulkii oo dhan bay tageen marka wada hadalkeena anaga gudaha uu bilowday waxaan jeclaan lahayn inaan sii xoojino gabdhaha Soomaaliyeed oo hawsha gudaha ka wado hawl adag gudaha ka wadana waxaanu leenahay waa idin garab taaganahay golaha isu taga haweenka Soomaaliyeed wax uu ballan qaaday waxa weeyaan inaan la shaqeyno haweenka gudaha iyo kuwa dibaddaba waxyaabo badan oo ku fakarnay baa jiro oo ah inaan mataqaanay aan isku duuno programada hadda aan wadna waa idin kormari karnaa laakiin ma rabno inaan sii dhexgalno maadaama waqtigu uu yar yahay laakiin dhinaca muxuu ahaa horumarinta bulshada dhaqaalaha iyo siyaasadda labadaba saddexda waxaan isleenahay waxbaad ka qaban kartaan waana ku tara jirnaa haddii Ilaahay idmo.
I received a phone call initially when I had sent a note out to Daniel. Daniel is my foster son. We met him while he was sponsored back in 1990, and he met Idil while he was at Carleton University. They were studying together, and he called me several times since he heard about the death of Idil, and so I'm reading the letter that he sent this morning. Dearest family and friends of Idil, it is with great sadness I received the news of my sister, colleague, friend and mentor, Idil's passing a few weeks ago. This is when you say, how does the world work? Why do bad things happen? Why? What questions come? Just a few months ago, I passed by Ottawa and met Idil and her mother for a short time. It was Ramadan season, so we had few moments to say hello and catch up. I can tell you then that she looked happy, proud of her girls' school achievements, and super excited about the future. To learn now she's gone is very difficult news for me to process, and I'm still trying to understand why in my head. When I met Idil almost 25 years ago, I was a young university student, had come to Canada, and had very few people to look up to. We had a common friend, Hamdi Mohammed, but people like Idil were the ones you wanted to model yourself around. As newly arrived immigrant, you tend to look up to people with similar experiences. And I must say then and even today, the strong Somali women who inspired me to stay in school and accomplish my education speak volumes of Idil. This beautiful piece of land in the Horn of Africa called Somalia has such strong women. I met Idil again in 2006 when I joined CEDA. When I started my work, Idil and all the members of the partnership branch took me under their wings, that includes Norman, and guided me along. It was a very strong team again, full of strong women. Idil was and still remains to be one of the most wonderful role models, an example of how in this beautiful country of ours called Canada, you can dream, work hard, and dedicate yourself without changing your principle and be successful. Idil embodied the work of ethics, the ethics of a real Canadian person to me. Look at her 4 beautiful girls, each of them carrying themselves with such amazing confidence and competency. Look at the legacy she leaves behind for all of us, setting the standard so high and so hard. As her friend, I stand proud to tell you that I stood with her as she was finalizing her PhD studies. She spent hours reading, talking, reviewing, and pushing herself to get it done, and I saw such determination. Being a single mother to 4 teenage girls, one of her daughters and her 3 nieces, working full-time and to do your PhD is not an easy task, and yet Idil did it. She was also fully engaged in all the community discussions and meetings that she believed her native land Somalia that would lead her native land Somalia to a peaceful and progressive path. I will miss her wise, calm, and strong presence in my life. Idil, thank you for the shared collective and wonderful experiences. My children, my wife, myself have lost a sister, an auntie, a friend, and above all, a role model. We will cherish your wonderful presence in our lives. Thank you for blessing us with your kindness. May God rest your soul in peace. And this was sent by Daniel Beheta. He also has a PhD, and he's the Chief of Education in UNICEF, Kenya right now. I should just mention that I met Idil at CEDA, and we worked together for a while, but I also actually replaced Idil while she was doing her last year of her PhD. And I remember when she came back and all happy and excited that she had passed it. So it's been a pleasure for me to know Idil, obviously, and I've also visited her family at home. We had become good friends, and I was very privileged when I lived in Kenya at the High Commission that I was able to go to Somalia, her Somalia. Thank you.
Dr. Idil Ladane-Xus death sparked an outpouring of tributes online as Somalis from all walks of life took to social media on Monday to mourn the death of a woman often referred to as spirited. And Ed Yusuf, my older brother as well, research assistant at Darson Research and Consultancy, told Giska Africa Online, Dr. Idil Saleh has touched the future generation, and I will always keep her in my hearts. The Prime Minister of Somalia, Umar Abdirashid Ali Sharmake, also shared his condolences and said, "My sincere condolences to Idil's family, friends, and Somalia. I am very sorry to hear about your loss. Idil was a very kind and honest woman, and Ottawa will miss her. I ask Allah to please forgive her and grant her Jannatul Firdausa." The former president of Somalia, the Somali Canadian community in Ottawa, Professor Noor Kafi, the chancellor of the Somali Institute of Security and Diplomacy, and the current executive director of the Canadian Eye on Africa, said, in the thickness of shock, my sister, my friend, Dr. Idil Saleh, we lost a great person from the Somali Canadian community in Ottawa. She'll be fondly remembered. Idil Ladane-Xus was a prominent gender equality activist and research of peace building development has died in Ottawa on Monday, age 50. Her family said Ms. Ladane began activism at a young age. In the light of activism, complaints by women in Somalia focusing on empowerment of Somali women's role in society. She co-founded both the Somali's Women's Circle Network and the Somali's Gender Equality. You are a legend, brave always, and stood above others, said Ahmed Shamsi in Minneapolis on Twitter. Give me a second, sorry about that. As women, you always made us look stronger, but today I'm heartbroken. I love you, Idil, said Fatia Mumin, a Somali Canadian woman in Ottawa. Dr. Idil was someone who was dedicated a lot of time and energy, as well to the well-being of the Somali nation in general, and particularly to the Somali women's. May every lesson she taught us, every program she started, every soul she touched, serve as sadaqah jariyah for her, said Lul Khumeya, one of the founding members of the Somalian gender equality movement. Dr. Idil was a researcher who conducted work that relates to gender equality, human security, failed states, peace building, and development issues. Idil has written on Somali issue extensively, especially on the role of Somali women in peace and development. Idil was working for the federal government of Canada. She holds a PhD in public affairs management, the master's in anthropology according to the Somali Women Center.
Good evening, my name is Xasuusta, and I am Idil Salah's nephew. I will be reading a message from Jama Ibrahim, who's a close friend of Idil. He's a lawyer in Atlanta, I'm saddened for the passing of my friend and only sister, Idil. I recognize that death is the fate of everyone, but it's always difficult to say goodbye when it happens so suddenly to a loved one this young. I'm so sorry that you're getting this message this late and that I could not be there today with you, the family and our friends, to remember together the good old days that we spent with Idil. Believe me, I would love to be there, but unfortunately, due to work and family commitments, I am unable to. My thoughts and prayers are with you all. Going back to memory lane, I remember meeting Idil at Carleton University back in 1990 when I started my undergrad program here. We immediately hit it off and became friends. I remember her beautiful face and distinct laugh and pleasant personality. In and outside of Carleton, we worked together for years on student projects such as starting Xasuusta, as well as on various other community programs. What I remember most about Idil is her strong-willed personality and dedication to what she believed in. She would not take no crap from anyone. She wasn't afraid to stand up to the men in the community who did not like to see a woman take a leadership role. She would not sit back and watch men run the show to satisfy their egos. She would deal with them as equals. She was dedicated to the advancement of women's rights and role in society. If she was on your side, she was someone you can always count on. I always envisioned her holding significant leadership roles. Sadly, she went too soon. I love her for who she was, and I miss her tremendously. Please forgive me for not making it with you today. Jama Ibrahim.
We'll move on to our fourth speaker. I'd like to call up Tammy Prosper. Tammy was a longtime friend and a colleague of Idil. Over time, their friendship grew as close as sisters. So please join me in welcoming Tammy.
Okay, I had a speech prepared and I met more people and I spoke with more people and I said, oh my gosh, I need to revamp it. Ibian said, no, just go with what you've said. Anyway, I thank you guys for asking me to speak, and it's a privilege and I appreciate it. I've known Idil now for several years. The pride that I have in being able to call Dr. Idil Salah my friend, my confidant, and above all else my sister would take me days to express to you. But I will just take a couple minutes of your time today. We met at a community event that was involved with trying to better the existence of Black in Canada several years ago, and we quickly became friends. I can't tell you exactly how or when our friendship happened. I can just say that it happened. As you know, with your family members, you can only pinpoint the day that you were born into the family, and therefore that is how I can only describe my relationship with Idil. The day we met would be the day that we became sisters. It was a natural union and one that only God could provide you with the details. As many of you know, Idil was very positive, encouraging, and always liked to punctuate her points with a proverb. I marveled that she always had a story or a proverb to state, and I remember saying to her, "Hey, what is it with you and your proverbs?" She just calmly looked at me and said, "My sister, our culture is an oral one, and therefore we pass down the stories and proverbs with one another, so there are lots of them." Love is the word that I would use to describe Idil. She made me, yes, made me, love others even when I didn't want to, or even when I didn't think that they deserved anyone to love them. I would talk about people and I would tell her all that they may have done to me and give her many reasons why they should never receive my smile. And she would just say, okay, I hear you, but look at it this way. I would roll my eyes and I'd say, what are you talking about? Did you not hear points A, B, and C? Did you not hear the nastiness with which they treated me? And she would just nod and reiterate her many points about why I should look at them and the situation from another perspective. She looked at the world with another perspective and always encouraged me to do so as well. I grew to see the limitations in being right and holding my ground. Over time, I have evolved into a woman that is able to more easily shake away the negatives. I have come to the realization that nothing is absolute. There is nothing or no one that is all good or all bad. I embrace those moments of realization with the ease of mind that I too may inflict grief and pain to others, so acceptance for one's mistakes and faults are not as hard to give, knowing that I am not only on the receiving end, but sadly and regrettably, I may also be on the giving end as well. I thank Idil for that clarity of thought and the realization that I may be as annoying to others as I think others are to me. I love to laugh with Idil. It didn't matter the occasion or the place. We always shared a good chuckle. One time when we were talking and I had just gone through a particularly rough patch in my life, I made the declaration to Idil that it was over and thankfully I would never go through that again. I thanked Idil for her support and her unwavering resolve to make sure that I went through life with as few bruises as possible. She said no problem and agreed with me on the finality of that chapter of my life. I said, Idil, as a small gesture and acknowledgement of my thanks to you, you will never have to pay a coffee when you are with me again. I'm always going to pick up the tab, and I'm telling you this in advance because I don't want to discuss or debate this the next time we are out. She just shook her head and she said, whatever, but not necessary. Well, we met up shortly after my emphatic declaration, and while we were in line at Tim Hortons, I reminded her about my promise to her and said that the coffee was on me and that she couldn't say anything because she had acknowledged and agreed with my promise earlier. She said, okay, no problem, whatever you want to do. When we arrived at the counter, we placed our orders, and I was so happy and I couldn't wait to sit down and enjoy our time together. Well, I opened up my wallet and saw that I didn't have any money, and this was the time before bank cards were so readily accepted for payment everywhere. Anyway, I turned to Idil and I said, oops, I don't have any money. You will have to pay for our coffees. She just looked at me with shock and we both started laughing. The cashier just looked at us like we were crazy and took Idil's payment. Of course, as you can imagine, that coffee time was spent laughing hysterically about the incident. Idil, of course, took that moment to share another proverb with me. And we laughed over the fact that yet again, life is always presenting us with the point that there are no absolute parts of our journey here on earth. Life is always gracious enough to present opportunities to see changes, no matter our situations, no matter our resolutions, and no matter our temperaments. Please, let's stay together as we embrace this change to our situation and to our presence with Dr. Idil Sala. Love is the word that I would use to describe her, and love is the way I feel when I think about her. She encouraged me to root myself and base my decisions from a place of love, and I would like to encourage you all to do the same. I love her and I miss her, and I know that you all do as well. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of my moments that I spent with Idil.
The next person I'd like to call up is Kamal. Here we go. Idil Salah was a great friend and a mentor to Kamal. She loved him as a younger brother. Please join us in sharing a few words.
Assalamu alaikum. First, I want to say to the family, Thank you for inviting me here. Idil and I go way back. We go way back, almost like I think it was late '80s, early '90s. We all came to Canada around the same time, and we all met. We used to work at a place downtown in Argyle at the Catholic Immigration Center that many of you are familiar with. We worked in that building, and somehow we developed a community around that building. And Ibian and Idil had an office on the second floor, and I was working in the same building. And somehow we got to know each other. And this is very hard what you ask for me right now, but I'll try my best to stand in the middle. So, like I was saying, over the years we became very good friends. I got to know the family, and I got to know the young ladies here. At the time, they were very, very young, and I was probably around 21, 22 years old. And one day, Idil came up to me in my floor and said, "Hey, Kamal, what are you doing?" So I'm working. I have a conference call and I need a babysitter for an hour or so. Come down. She had a way of asking, but she wasn't really asking. It's strange how that she had that skill, and I wind up several times spending a lot of time with these young ladies, and I babysat them often, and I often played with them. And they probably don't remember, but I used to carry them on my shoulder a lot. I never told Idil that I dropped you guys a couple of times. That might explain some things that we noticed over the years. But if there was any permanent damage, I'm sorry. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun getting to know the family, getting to know the girls, and I was very fond with them. I was very close to them. So I got to know the family very well, and Idil and I and Ibian, we became very close friends. And I was alone in town at that time. I was by myself. I didn't have any family here. I had an aunt, but when I moved here, she moved to Vancouver. You know? I think it was just too cold for her here. And but I stuck around, and the family actually they welcomed me to their house. They welcomed me to their life, and they made me feel very welcomed. Slowly but surely, I got to know Idil and Ibian and the girls, and Idil somehow, she took me under her wing. I don't think I had much choice in the matter. It was more or less, come here, I'll tell you something. You look a little bit lost. I said, yeah, I'm 20 years old. I should be lost. That's what 20-year-olds do. We're lost. But we spent quite a bit of time together, and we talked often. And at the time, I was new to the country, and I was like everybody else. I was a refugee. I was going through the process. And she told me a lot about respecting who I am, respecting where I came from, and respecting my new adopted country. For that, I appreciate a lot what she told me in that. And she encouraged me to continue getting better in life, getting my education. And we hosted a lot of events together. I think you mentioned the Somali National Week. I think the first time we put it together, 93, 94, something around that range in Ottawa U. And they were doing some kind of a fashion show at the time. And they were looking for some Somali male to wear traditional clothing. And as you remember, Ladane-Xus and Hamdi and those guys, they were after me to do that. And I was refusing. And I was hiding in the building, refusing. As they were doing rehearsals in the basement, I just said, no way I'm going to do that. Well, Idil came looking for me. 30 seconds later, I came out wearing the traditional clothing. And she had her own way of making sure that I did whatever she wanted, but she didn't make it sound like she ordered me. But I knew I didn't have much choice in the matter. So I appreciate that very much. And it was fun. We had a great time. We attended a lot of different evenings and events. I gotta say that I looked up to her. She was a great role model for me. She actually encouraged me to go back to school and do my studies and graduate studies and so forth. Along the years, over the last 10 years, I moved away for a while. I moved down south and worked in different places. But I eventually came back. Now I have my own family and 2 young girls that, funny enough, I called Asha and Ayan. So, it's she, and the only thing I can really say and hope is that my daughters will take great pride for the stories that I'll tell them of her, that they will aspire to be as successful as Idil was. I miss her very much.
Another dear sister of Dr. Idil, Ambassador Ibn Salah, Somalia's ambassador to India and the Dean of Arab League, was the younger sister of Idil. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Ibn Salah.
Assalamu alaikum. Dear friends, families, colleagues of Dr. Idil Ladane-Salah. We called Idil Ladane because that was our family nickname, Idil Ladane. But in Canada, they call us Idil Salah, Ibn Salah, Ayan Salah. So I would like to thank you all for coming today to help us celebrate our sister's life. Idil passed away on November 8th, and it's sad that her life ended so early. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rest her in peace and grant her Jannatul Firdausa. As a family, we are happy to see many people from different communities here today to pay tribute to Dr. Idil Ladane-Salah. We sincerely appreciate it. Dr. Idil had a loving girls, as you heard, wonderful family, great friends, and a brilliant career with SIDA and DFET. She was part of so many organizations as other friends said. She was served as a founder, co-founder, board member, you name it, a few, as already have been mentioned, some kind of Institute for Research and Development, SWCA, SGEM, Vice President of Puntland Diaspora Forum, known as BDF, and Friends of Somalia. She truly believed it. I asked her one time, what makes you to be part of or be the co-founders of the organizations? And she said to me, and she was a sociology anthropologist, so she believed that what Margaret Mead said, never doubt about that small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world indeed. It's the only thing that ever has. So believing that, she always be part of the organizing people themselves for a cause. She believed Somali diaspora can play a vital role to support the peace and development in our community and in our country. In my humble opinion, and as a young sister, Dr. Idil was very kind to everyone I know. Her strength and perseverance were unique and invaluable. She was comfortable with her life, had a very high self-esteem, nobody can have that, and sense of humor that we all love it. I remember when I decided to move back to Somalia, one time I told her, I want to go back and contribute in our country. And the first question she asked me was, what's stopping you? And I said, the package, 3 girls. I have 3 girls, And she said, don't worry about them. We are a family. I'll take care of them. And you do what you have, the flame of passion to support your country. And I will follow your footsteps, she said. And that's why I left 2004 to Somalia. And I'm very happy that my colleague, Ambassador Muhammad Al America, is with us. We have done it so much for our country, and sometimes I used to come back and tease her, what you have loved to do the most, I'm the one who's doing it. But she was a very proud sister for all of us, and she was a mentor for our family. Definitely, we will miss her intellectual debates, as our friend said before. Anything and everything you want to talk about it, she would like to see from the positive perspective of that. She always hated the negative. She used to say, don't bring the universe to the negativity. Just talk about the positive things. Any issue that relates to our society was a matter to her. We also miss her, for sure, her consistent summertime barbecue in her home with all her close friends and families. I wish I can say all the pictures here, each and every picture there, I know when it happened. On behalf of the Somali community in Ottawa and the family, I would like to announce that we will establish a new foundation on her name, Dr. Idil Ladane-Xus Foundation for Hope. It will help to continue her legacy and what she'd like to contribute to society as a Sadaqa Jariyah with this foundation. We will mobilize the power of our community in Canada and in Somalia by engaging individuals in collective action in order to reduce poverty and enhance education for youth and young girls. The foundation will be launched in June, and the reason why, she always liked to be perfect when we're doing things. And it's just too early for us to do that now. And it's a summer. She loves also the sun and the summer. And some of the girls will also be graduating during that time. So we will launch an organization on June, inshallah, 2016. Dr. Idil spent her entire life helping other people, and we take it upon ourselves to continue on her legacy. There will be so many ways you will be involved to help us on this matter. We will communicate with you when the time comes, inshallah. Let me say a little bit in Somali way, since someone mentioned this is the SNTV, and I'm the part of the government. walaalayaal marka hore ku mahadsanidin imaatinkiina aad nagala soo qayb gasheen xuska iyo xasuusta walaasheen Idil Ladane-Xus. Allah u naxariisto. waxaan maanta idinla socodsiinaynaa anigoo ku hadlaya magaca familka iyo magaca Somali community in Ottawa inaan ku dhawaaqni doono organization la magac baxay Dr. Idil Ladane-Xus Foundation kaasoo noqon doono sadaqa jaariya laguna hirgelin doono hawshii ay jeclayd inay u qabato ummadda Soomaaliyeed. Dr. Idil waxay rabtay inay wax badan u qabato dhalinyarada iyo gabdhaha jiilka soo koraya. Waxay ka mid noqon doontaa arrimaha foundationku ku tabaruci doono. Hadday noqoto waxbarasho, caafimaad, ceelal la qodo, dhir la beero, timirtana aad bay u jeclayd. iyo wadaniyada qarannimada iyo afka Soomaaliga oo loo xoojiyo jiilka soo koraya. As my sister there mentioned. Inshallah, officially, bisha June وسا سعتا لبدا كوني لحي تونك أيانو كل واقع دونا أما launch جرين دونا وحانو هرمود كان نقون دونا Somali community in Ottawa and the family and the young generations in here. مرلبات وادي أدبر مهسنتهين جزاك الله خير. Thank you very much and I sincerely appreciate it for today's event. Thanks.
إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. إلهي هون حريستو ولا شين دكتور Idil Ladane-Xus der oo dhawaan ku geeriyootay magaalada Ottawa waxaan Ilaahay uga baryaynaa naxariis janno inuu siiyo dhammaan eheladii iyo caa'iladii ay ka tagtayna samir iyo iimaan uu ka siiyo gaar ahaan reer ladane iyo gabadheedii ayaan cabduqaadir iyo guud ahaan reer saalax deero idil iyo ummadda soomaaliyeed meelay joogtaba in ilaahay samir iyo iimaan uu ka siiyo aniga ahaan idil dr idil maxamed saalax deer ladane aad iyo aad ayaan u aqaanay macruufo badanna way naga dhexaysay walaaltinimona way naga dhexaysay waxaanu ahayn dad aad isugu xiran oo runtii si aad iyo aad isugu dhow waxyaabo badanna wada tashi ka yeeshay wax badanna wada qabtay talooyin badanna isla qaybsaday ama isla wadaagay famil ahaan haddii ay noqoto iyo haddii ay noqoto mid guud oo qaran iyo mid gaar ahayd oo xagga jaaliyadda ah guud ahaan Canada iyo Toronto iyo Ottawa intaba idil asal ahaan ilaahay ha u naxariistee waxa ay ka soo jeeday amaba dhalay aabe ka mid ahaa halyeeyadii Soomaaliyeed ee SYL dadkii xorriyadda soo dhaliyay oo taariikh dheerna ku lahaa ummadda Soomaaliyeed maxamed saalax ladana deer oo dadka oo dhan ay garanayaan ayaa soo abaabiyay mar walbana ku bogaadin jiray midnimada ummadda Soomaaliyeed iyo in la raadiyo Soomaali weyn ayada oo fikradaha ka duuleysa kuna soo barbaartay aqalkaas xorriyadda laga soo dhaliyay ayay idil mar walba hamigeedu wuxuu ahaa isu keenid in bulshada la isu keeno haddii ay noqoto jaaliyad ahaan runtii gurigeeda waxa uu ahaa guriga Soomaalida ay isugu timaado ama community-ga mar walba waxa aad arkaysaa haddii aad tagto gurigeeda iyadoo 2 3 ama 5 7 qof inay joogto xilli walba waxa ay xilliga kuleelaha sanad walba ay jaaliyadda ugu sameyn jirtay gurigeeda maalin qaasa oo isu yimaadaan oo ay halkaas ku wada sheekaystaan ay ku samaystaan waxa loo yaqaan barbecue-ga caruurta la keeno sheekana ay halkaasna ay ka wada sheekaystaan mar walba ay community-ga ay wax jaaliyadda ay wax soo wajahdana gurigeeda waxa uu ahaa guriga lagu tashado waxa uu ahaa guriga laga duulo guriga wax laga qorsheeyo waxayna caan ku ahayd ayada mar walba haddii ay dhacdo in fikraduhu ay kala duwanaadaan midda isu soo jiida dadka oo isu keenta midaysa fikradahooda meelna u wada jeedisa ilaahay oo naxariistay dr idil saalax idil maxamed ladana saalax jaaliyadda oo idil ayaa dareentay geerideeda waayo waxa ay xasuusteen booska ay uga jirtay jaaliyadda oo ay mar walba muddo 20 sano ah ay ugu adeegaysay iyadoo wax dan gaar ah aan ka lahayn ama wax ceesh ah oo markaa ay ka helaysay aan jirin halkaas ayay iskuuladeedii ku dhamaysatay ilaa iyo heerka ugu sarreeya ee PhD-ga ah oo ay jaamacadda ay kaga baxday halka Carleton University oo Ottawa ku taala waxay u shaqeynaysay hay'adaha sida iyo wasaaradda arrimaha dibadda ee waddankan Canada xilal fara badan ayay ka soo qabatay sida aad ku arkayseen barnaamijka caawa oo ay dadkii la shaqeynayay kulligood ay qireen waxyaabaha ay jaaliyadda u sheegaysay oo ahayd in ahayd qof aad u naxariis badan qof jecel inay fikradaha kala duwan isu keento inay ahayd qof jecel waxa dadka danyarta ah mar walba wax taraya in la qabto waxa xusuus mudan xagga Soomaaliya ahaan idil mar walba inay ku doodi jirtay in cod dheer lagu sheego dhibka shacabka haysta in laga qaado danyarta in laga qaado dhibka kuwa dulman in dhibka laga qaado oo ay badankoodu yihiin dumar dadka dhibaatada xoog leh ay soo gaartay 30 sano ee la soo dhaafay Soomaaliya waxa ay mar walba jecleed in inta wax garanaysa oo dhan ay cod u noqdaan dadka dhibaataysan haddii ay ahaan lahayd kuwa qaxootiyada ku jira kuwa ku dhibaataysan waddanka gudihiisa oo qaxootiga ku ah waddanka haddii ay ahaan lahayd kuwa tacdaraysan ee caafimaad darrada ay haysato dadka waayeelka ah oo dhiban dhalinyarada waxbarasho la'aanta ah waxyaabaha ay ku doodi jirtay mar walba waxa ahayd waxa loo yaqaano social service-ka in dadka baahida hayso la baahi tiro in dadka dulmiga laga qaado in waddanka daacad loo noqdo oo uusan noqon waddanka meel loo shaqo tago ama laga shaqaysto oo laga raadiyo hanti in laga samaysto laakiin ay noqoto waddanka meel hantida la geliyo meel muruq iyo maalba la isugu geeyo iyo maskax lagu biiriyo dalkii dib loo soo kobciyo dhaqaalihii iyo arrimaha bulshada fikradaha noocaasa qof qaba ayuu ahaa runtii waxa ay ahayd Dr. Idil Maxamed Saalax qof qaran hamigeedu kama hooseen qaran wax walba ay cabiraysana waxay ku cabiri jirtay qaranka inta badan waxaan aragnaa dad fikradahooda mar walba ku beesgara isbedbedelayaan oo markaa jawiga siyaasadeed ee Soomaaliya sida uu yahay ku cabiraya laakiin iyadoo waxaan oran karaa cabir kaliya ay lahayd cabirkeedana wuxuu ahaa Soomaaliya calanka buluuga ay shanta xidigood ayuu cabirkeeda ahaa runtii waxaan oran karaa amaba aan aaminsanahay qof qaran inuu naga tagay guud ahaan ummadda Soomaaliyeed oo dhan inay tabayso qofka noocaas oo kale ah waayo waxyaabaha waddanka uu u baahan yahay inay helaan haddii ay noqon lahayd hoggaan haddii ay noqon lahayd aqoon haddii ay noqon lahayd daacadnimo haddii ay noqon lahayd dareen loo damqaado dadka idil waxa ay ahayd qof intaba leh sifooyinkaas oo dhan lahayd waana qofka ay ummadda Soomaaliyeed u baahan yihiin inuu u adeego heer kasta oo ay noqotoba ma ahan madaxweyne oo kaliya inuu noqdo qofka noocaas oo kale ah laakiin inuu noqdo qof fursadda la siiyo si uu u agaasimo maamulka guud iyo midka gaarka ah ay u baahan yahay waddanka waxaa kaloo aan ku xasuustaa Dr. Idil Maxamed Saalax in hamigeeda uu mar walba ahaa sideen ku horumarin karnaa Soomaaliya in hamigeedu mar walba uu ahaa jiilka yaryar sidee lagu siin karaa waxbarasho sidee wax lagu bari karaa dhalinta aan waalidiintood awoodda u lahayn inay wax bartaan waxay jecleed mar walba in qof walba oo Soomaaliya si siman loo siiyo fikradda fursadda aqoonta oo ay noqon kaliya inta awoodda aan Ilaahay iyo xoolaha siiyay in ilmahooda ay wax bartaan laakiin mar walba aqoonta la siiyo xiriyaha qaxootiga ku jira fursadda la siiyo cid qof kasta oo Soomaaliya uu helo fursadda sidaas ayaynu ku imaan kartaa wadaniyad ayay ku doodi jirtay waayo qofka haddii aanu ka ciishin waddanka looma sinaan karo oo hadhowdii ma noqonaysa in loo sinaado waddankii haddee koox kaliya ama dad gaara ay ka ceeshaan ma jirayso muwaadiniintu inay hal muwaadin noqdaan oo isinaadaan marka idil waxa ay mar walba ku taami jirtay inay aragto Soomaaliya midaysan oo ka baxda dhibaatooyinka colaadda joogtada ah ay ku jirto ay ka harto ama iska dhaafto qabyaaladda la isaga sheegayo maalin walba taasoo ay ku danaysanayaan sida aan ognahay shakhsiyaad gaar ah maslaxadooda ay ku jirto in laga baxo ay Soomaalidu dhinac kaliya u wada jeesato gacmaha ay isqabsadaan walaala noqdaan wadankooda dhistaan una naxaan danyartooda una naxaan kan jilicsan kan awoodda lahayn kan dhibaataysan inaan la dulmin dumarka in laga dhaafo dulmiga xaq la mid ah qof kasta oo muwaadin ahna uu helo qofka dumarka ah gabdhaha guud ahaan in la ilaaliyo xuquuqdooda inaan lagu tacadiyin ayay mar walba idil u taagneed waxa ay guud ahaan jaaliyadda magaalada Ottawa ay ugu jirtay boos weyn waxa ay mar walba isugu yeeri jirtay jaaliyadda inay cod midaysan ku qabsadaan howlahooda inay ku taageeraan qofkii markaa dhibaataysan si midaysan idil waxa ay caan ku ahayd isu keenidda ummadda waxaana afkeeda ka dhowrsanaa hadallada xanafta leh wuxuuna afkeeda u badnaa waxyaabaha wanaagsan ay doonayaan dhagaha inay maqlaan sida isjacayl walaaltinimo qarannimo wadaninimo iyo wixii la mid ah ayay mar walba ku boorin jirtay ummadda Soomaaliyeed
intaasi ayaanu ku soo gabagabeynaa daawadayaal barnaamijkeennii codka jaaliyadda Canada oo toddobaadkan aynu ku soo qaadanay kulan looga hadlayay waxqabadka iyo taariikhda Allah u naxariistay Dr. Idil Maxamed Saalax Ladane ayaa lagu qabtay magaalada Ottawa ee dalka Canada inta barnaamijka codka jaaliyadda barnaamijka xiga aynu ku kulmi doono anigoo ah Muxdiin Jaamac nabadgelyo